Welcome to our deep dive on the smart car lease buyout strategy. We will evaluate when it makes sense to finance the residual versus paying cash in full. We'll also cover how to redirect cash flow for long-term wealth, and we'll test your understanding with quick quizzes. Let's begin. Here's our roadmap. First, we'll frame the lease end decision. Next, we'll compare cash payoff versus financing. Then we'll walk through numbers. After that, we'll consider life changes that affect the decision. Then we'll show how to redirect monthly payments into investments. We'll reinforce learning with short quizzes and conclude with key takeaways and next steps. Before we proceed, this content is educational only and not financial or tax advice. Individual circumstances such as credit score, interest rates, and tax situations vary, so please consult a qualified advisor before acting on any information here. With that foundation, let's move into the core decision. At the end of the vehicle lease, your primary choice is whether to buy the car by paying the residual value in cash or by taking a new loan to finance that amount. To simplify the decision, we will outline when cash payoff is typically optimal and when financing could be justified. Now let's visualize the decision path. This flowchart presents a structured path. First, if you have substantial liquid assets and minimal existing debt, evaluate the projected APR for the buyout loan. If the APR exceeds roughly 5 to 6%, paying cash is typically the better choice. If the APR is at or below that range, check whether your cash is earmarked for a critical higher return opportunity. If and only if the after-tax expected return meaningfully exceeds the APR, financing can be justified. Conversely, if liquidity is limited or existing debt is high, preserving an emergency fund and considering financing may be prudent. Parallel to this, assess whether the vehicle still suits your needs, especially after life events. If it does not, consider replacing the vehicle instead of buying it out. With the decision path laid out, let's examine why cash payoff often wins in common scenarios. Paying cash frequently wins because it creates a guaranteed return by eliminating interest expenses, especially when the projected loan APR is above 5 to 6%. This return can exceed what you might get from many safe investments. Additionally, cash payoff is simpler. No new loan, less paperwork, and no monthly payments. It also clarifies your budget by removing a recurring obligation, helps minimize consumer debt, and provides peace of mind by owning the vehicle outright. Next, let's compare cash payoff and financing side by side. On the left, cash payoff means no interest costs, immediate ownership, and liberated monthly cash flow. However, it requires available liquidity and is particularly compelling when the loan's APR is high and no superior opportunity for the cash exists. On the right, financing spreads payments and preserves liquidity but incurs interest. Financing can make sense when APR is very low and the reserved cash is truly earmarked for a higher return, time-sensitive opportunity. Regardless, it's important to maintain a healthy emergency fund. Now let's examine actual numbers to quantify the trade-offs. This table shows an illustrative residual value of $25,000. At 6.5% for 36 months, the estimated monthly payment is about $767, with roughly $2,594 in total interest. At 2.9% for the same term, the payment is approximately $728, with around $1,199 in total interest. Cash payoff has 0 monthly payments and 0 interest but requires liquidity. These figures are estimates for illustration, not guarantees. With the numbers in mind, let's discuss when financing can still make sense. Financing may be rational when the APR is very low, such as promotional rates near 0 to 3%, when your cash is specifically earmarked for a higher expected return opportunity with sound risk control, when you need to preserve liquidity to protect your emergency fund, or when tax and account timing considerations make flexibility valuable. Having said that, let's incorporate a vital non-financial factor: whether this car still fits your life. Major life events, such as having children, changing commutes, or needing enhanced reliability, can shift the equation. In these cases, the optimal choice might be replacing the vehicle rather than buying it out. Reassess safety, space, reliability, and total cost of ownership before you commit. With suitability addressed, let's plan what to do with the freed-up monthly cash if you pay in full. This pie chart illustrates a sample allocation for the cash flow that used to be your car payment. One approach could be 60% toward increased retirement contributions, 20% to a 529 college savings plan, and 20% to top up an emergency fund. The exact mix depends on your goals and current balances. Next, let's turn this idea into simple action steps. To operationalize your decision, first confirm the residual amount, fees, and payoff steps with the lender or dealer. If paying cash, plan the transfer mechanics. If financing, compare APRs across credit unions and banks, and focus on total cost. Immediately after payoff, create an automatic transfer equal to your former car payment into your investment accounts. Prioritize tax-advantaged accounts, such as workplace plans, IRAs, and HSAs, and then consider a taxable brokerage account. If relevant, open or fund a 529 college savings plan. Review progress quarterly, and rebalance as needed. Now, let's check your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: if you have substantial liquid assets, minimal debt, and your projected APR is 6.5%, what is generally the smarter move? Options: A. Finance the buyout. B. Pay cash for the vehicle. C. Take a longer loan to reduce the monthly payment. Or D. Lease a different car immediately. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Pay cash for the vehicle. Eliminating an interest expense at 6.5% provides a guaranteed return that likely exceeds many safe alternatives. Question: after paying off the vehicle in cash, what is a strategic use of the freed monthly cash flow? Options: A. Let it sit in a standard savings account indefinitely. B. Spend it on discretionary purchases. C. Automate contributions to retirement accounts and possibly a 529 plan. Or D. Keep it as unallocated cash with no plan. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. Automate contributions to retirement accounts and possibly a 529 plan. Redirecting the old car payment into growth-oriented accounts is a disciplined way to build long-term wealth rather than letting funds sit idle. Here is a concise recap using Markdown formatting. First, assess your liquidity, debt, and the projected APR. If the APR exceeds roughly 5 to 6% and you have sufficient liquidity, paying cash is typically recommended. If the APR is low and your cash is truly earmarked for a higher return opportunity, financing may be reasonable. Confirm the vehicle still fits your current life needs. Then, automate investments in an amount equal to your former car payment. Note the illustrative math showing potential costs and potential investment outcomes. These are not guarantees and are for educational purposes only. Next, let's visualize the timeline from 90 days before lease end to after the payoff. This timeline outlines milestone tasks. At 90 days before lease end, evaluate the vehicle, your needs, and the residual value. At 60 days, shop financing rates and compare to paying cash. At 45 days, decide whether to keep or replace the vehicle. At 30 days, arrange the payoff funds or the loan. 1 week out, confirm paperwork and insurance details. On the lease end date, execute the buyout with cash or financing. The following day, automate transfers of your former car payment into investments. By 30 days after, review allocations and rebalance as needed. With the timeline complete, let's close with key points. Key points: pay cash when the APR is high, liquidity is strong, and there is no superior use for your cash. Finance only when the APR is very low and your cash is earmarked for a higher return, time-sensitive opportunity. Always reassess whether the vehicle still fits your life. Immediately redirect your former car payment into investments to benefit from compounding. Maintain a solid emergency fund at all times. To conclude, you now have a practical framework to decide between paying cash and financing at lease end. Base your decision on the numbers and on whether the vehicle still fits your life. Automate the wealth shift the day after payoff by redirecting the former car payment into investments. For personalized guidance, consult a qualified advisor. Thank you for watching. If you found this valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. Let us know your lease end plan and questions in the comments so we can help you go deeper on this topic.